I
Hello, guys. I could see you and I could hear you. And Pat, you are in darkness.
Something's wrong with the
Okay, and you need to I'm gonna mute you because you got feedback. Okay, not you guys, not Alex and Tammy. Hi, Alex and Tammy.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hi, Evelyn.
Hi, what did you? Where are you guys? You guys have like this background now.
Yeah, this is a big palm tree behind that we're under.
we've jetted off to Hawaii.
Okay, yeah, I know you. You guys are like that. Pat, let me just hey girl, my dear Pat. Oh, that's good. I'm making sure that I am sharing the screen and not your screen. So who you see there, Pat, she's out in, I think she's in Europe right now. She's just in darkness. Let me just share this other screen in the meantime so people know what's happening. And I'm going to mute myself.
I'm not able to log in. Right, so I just gotta be logged in.
Let me mute us.
So Alex and Tammy, we already have some people in the room. We already have about 16 people that have logged in. I sent out another push this morning to people to my email list telling them, hey, if you're going on vacation, you need to get on here.
That's what we're about to do.
Exactly. Well, because I think, people think from the title of your talks, the Remote Superhost, that is only for you if you're living an independent life. But I think what you're doing works for anybody, that even if you go on vacation or if you want to hire somebody to help you and support you, or if you're working full time, I think what you're doing and presenting is going to be fantastic for everybody.
Yeah, we're very much looking forward to sharing.
Yes, yes, yes. And how's your morning? Because I know it's bright and early over there.
It's not. It's 10 o'clock, so it's all right. We've been up for a while.
So we have people from Barcelona already. Are you able to see the chat, Alex?
Yeah, we see it on the right. Yes.
Okay, you're welcome to chat with the people if you want to. We're very democratic here.
All right. Let me actually see. How do we respond to the chat on the right?
You just go to the bottom and you just,
Like actually there's a reply for each of them. Great.
Yeah, you could just reply to all. So you could do like to everybody or just to, to me. We have somebody from Alaska, Tanya from Alaska. Welcome, Tanya. And, I was just actually last night, I was having a little gelato with my friend Maria, who is on the talk, and she's actually doing a gathering at her place for our webcast.
And how many people does she have there?
I don't know, Maria, how many people do you have there? Can you hear me? Okay. I'm just trying to make sure that everybody can hear me and see me. Okay.
Woohoo. Yes.
Let me just
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so we're just, so she has 6 hosts. She's an amazing host. We get together and we start talking about like the statistics and what to do and the whole business side of it. She has about over 10 listings over there in New Jersey. And I keep telling her, you need to get on this website, man, girl. But she doesn't do just Airbnb. She does a lot of other stuff. And oh, great. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm glad that you can hear us. And we're not having any technical issues. We're going to start in about 5 more minutes. We're just trying to let people stay in and gather. So we have about 21. We had over 100 people register. Yeah. So this is going to be fun.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it.
And Evelyn, I'm glad that you pointed out that this is not just for people who want to be jet setters, but there are a lot of reasons that people might have to be away when they still have listing, their listing up and running and guests. And I visit family a lot, and Alex and I are it's a long distance relationship, so there are lots of reasons why people are out of town and need to have a plan in place for being able to have things running when they're not able to be there to do it themselves.
Yeah, and I think what happens, especially because if you don't travel enough and if you're not traveling often, you don't have a system set up. Because if you live a jet setter life or you live a traveling life and you travel with a business or pleasure or anything like that, you have set up a system. But when I travel only a few times a year, and it's always so hard for me to like teach people again. I'd be like, no, this is what I normally do with my towels. No, this is where things go. And I know that they forget because I'm not expecting them to remember my home when they only do it 4 times a year. So I think this is perfect, more so for the person that doesn't really travel a lot, because you already have a system. You could set it up and just forget about it for the next time that you're traveling. You already have it, and just give them the app to whoever you hire. And if people fell through because while I was away, it became like, oh no, this one cannot make it. And you're like, what? I have guests coming. How dare you?
It might even be in a case of an emergency where for some unexpected reason you have to be gone. It's still good to have a backup in place. I would be horrified if something happened and I was, not able to deliver the guest experience that I want to.
Exactly. For us, this is beyond just renting a room. I think, okay, somebody wants to talk to us about Paris. Micah, yes, it was a pity about what happened in Paris, and I'm going to have a conversation about it. And Maria, I'm so happy that you have 6 hosts there. Yay. So guys, if you want to sign in and chat and tell me exactly where you guys are calling in from. I always love to hear all the far places. But yes, I'm sorry, Tammy, I interrupted you before. You were saying how it is an emergency, how it is to, if you don't have a tribe, and even if you have a tribe that helps you out, if you don't have that recurrent help, you have to really have something set up that you could just turn on and just, hey, look at this, set it up, and do it quickly.
Yeah, and one of the things for us was, a little bit of the dream about Airbnb for us has always been it gives us flexibility. What we started realizing is because we're very particular about the hospitality, that's our hospitality, and to make sure that it's our personality that shines through, in a way you're then very much tied to your place, because we always were anxious not to leave because something could go wrong. And I think the key thing that we're focused on is how you can have that peace of mind of knowing that it's your hospitality that shines through, but at the same time being able to be away from home and enjoy not being shackled to the place and having to be there all the time and get the same results. So yeah. Basically we're trying to have our cake and eat it too.
No, and it is excellent. I love that. I could see an image of being shackled to your Airbnb and not really being able to leave it, when it's like people are enjoying my home on vacation. I want to go on vacation and enjoy it and not be concerned and not be worried. Even though, oh, look at that. Elizabeth is saying that she found the videos very helpful. She's trying to hire some cleaning help. Oh, we already have some questions. How much are people paying for that service? I just want to get an idea when hiring a person to manage your Airbnb while on vacation. Valerie, I actually pay a lot more than just a cleaning fee. I pay per exchange, because they're not just cleaning the space. If something happens in the house, they're the key communication for the guest. even though I like to be copied on all correspondence, I just don't pay like a cleaning fee for whoever is doing a turnover in my house, because I expect them to do a lot more than just doing that. Even though they're not there waiting for keys, I do have it. Yeah, we are sharing, Christy, we're only sharing right now the screen of the Remote Superhost. We're going to go live right now. All right. Okay, so let me stop sharing the screen, and now you guys can see Alex and Tammi. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. And good afternoon for those of you on the East Coast or everywhere else around the world.
So it is my pleasure to have Tammi and Alex, who were teaching at the Airbnb Open in Paris. And I always say on these videos, this is not an Airbnb sponsored event. This is an Evelyn Padilla sponsored event. Airbnb knows about them. I actually have been in communication with the host educator support system, and they know that we are doing these videos and these webinars. I feel that it is an advantage for all of the hosting community to be able to learn things that were taught at the Open, and unfortunately not everybody was able to attend. It is great for us to still get that information. It is valuable, and it is imperative for us to become the best host that we can be. And that's one of the reasons why I'm hosting the webinars, and I'm really thankful to Alex and Tammi to take the time and be here and be part of the community to teach you guys just a little bit of extra. And I'm just going to give us a little bit of 2 more minutes for people to join in and give you guys a story about Paris. We were just in Paris, and we were unfortunately there during the terrorist attacks. And on that Friday that the conference was going on, my phone decided to go swimming. And Alex and Tammi, whom I just met at the conference, it's not like I knew them from before. At the end of the day, I was telling them, oh my God, my phone is dead, and I need to go and do something. I had guests arriving in New York. I was really concerned. And he just had an extra phone and just gave it to me without telling me, hey, you have to give it to me in 24 hours or anything like that. And it was one of the most genuine, touching things that happened during that event, because then that night we had the disaster that happened, and I was able to still communicate with my family and communicate with people in New York and let them know that we were safe. So I'm really thankful for your generosity and hospitality. That's part of it. And hold on one second. I'm sorry. Tanya is saying that has anyone else's feed stopped. Let me just check with Pat. Can you see us and hear us? I'm sorry. I have somebody that's on the chat, and hopefully things. No, try reconnecting. Okay, so it seems like everything is still working. So I'm sorry again. I just want to say thank you so much, Alex and Tammi. You guys were amazing, and you still are. I finally sent them the phone, and they just got the phone 3 weeks later. So thank you. All right. So without much ado, I am going to let Alex and Tammi take it over. It is all yours, guys.
All right. So we're looking forward to talking with you all about the art of being a remote host today. And as Evelyn and as we were talking about before the webinar started, there are lots of reasons that people would want to host remotely. Some people want to travel, and Airbnb, renting their homes on Airbnb allows people to do that. Some people want to spend more time with family and have the flexibility of visiting. Some people travel for work. So there are lots of reasons that people want to have a system in place to be able to host and do a good job and still deliver a really good guest experience when they're not there. So we just want to make sure that this is there's something for everyone in this, even if you're someone who's doesn't travel a lot and has a lot of flexibility with your being available to your space and primarily do it on your own. There might be an emergency, and it's always just a good idea to have a backup in place.
I see a quick question on the right. June has a problem with connecting. Does anybody else have a problem with connecting? Just checking that everything's trying to work. Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody, so we'll continue. Yeah, so thanks very much for making the time today. What we're trying to do today is this. We presented at Airbnb Open about 27 ideas on how you can have that remote hosting experience, how you can actually be a real host, like just as if you were there without being there in person, without the anxiety and everything that goes with it of not being able to actually doing things yourself. So that's what we'd like to go through today. Two quick housekeeping notes. Anybody who'd like the presentation, we have our email addresses at the beginning and at the end. So feel free to send us an email and we'll be more than happy to send you the presentation so you don't have to take any notes. We also have a one-pager on notes on where we found different things, what apps we're using, what websites we're using, and we're very happy to send it to you too. So just write down our email address and we'll be happy to provide that. So now I'm going to try to switch over to the actual presentation. So I hope that works. Give me 1 second and we should be off and running. All right, so hope everybody sees the presentation. I can't, like while we're running the presentation, we can't actually see the chat portion anymore. So Evelyn, if there is any questions, if anybody has any problems and wants to interrupt us, please do. Like we can't see the chat while we're running the presentation, just as
no problem. I'm on it. I'm on it. And Alex, you need to just right now we see the entire screen. You just need to set it up as a separate screen.
Okay.
And separately, and then like that, because we're seeing all your slides on the side.
Oh, okay. So like that's how I set it up. I'm setting it up in play mode. So you're seeing all the rest of the slides. Hang on 1 second. I have it on full screen right now.
There you go.
Okay.
Better?
Better now?
Excellent.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So let's get started.
So I'll start. My name's Tammy, and I host in my tiny cottage in North Beacon Hill in Seattle, Washington. I started in January of 2014, so I'm coming on 2 years of hosting. I've hosted over 80 groups so far in my home, and started as a fluke. I wasn't intending to be, sort of a full-time Airbnb host, but it just took off, and so that's what happened. I attended the Airbnb Open last year in San Francisco, and I had the good fortune to meet Alex. And fast forward a few months later, we started dating, and so now we're really trying to perfect the art of remote hosting because we alternate our time between San Francisco and Seattle. So, so this is Alex.
Hi everyone. So yes, like we basically stumbled over this kind of by necessity. After Tammy and I met at last year's Airbnb Open, we had this tricky problem that we had 3 Airbnbs in total. Tammy's place in Seattle, my place in San Francisco, and then I've got actually a glamping tent in New Zealand. And really what we tried to do was spend as much time with each other, which means we were never at the 2 places that we actually had up on Airbnb. So all of what you're about to see came out of necessity. I have, as I said, 2 listings, one in San Francisco, one in New Zealand. In San Francisco, like I'm a super host like Tammy, and very, very much care about keeping my 5-star rating, but I can't ever be there. So we had to come up with a series of ideas on how to make all of this work, how to make the guest feel at home without us actually being able to be there. So let me start with the sort of the dream that we feel a lot of this is all about. And that dream is, what if we could be sitting in some beautiful beach shack? And this is the beach shack that actually Tammy and I, it's an Airbnb place, of course, in Orcas, Washington State, where Tammy and I had our first date. But sort of the question to us is, could we have a life where we could be on the beach while our home actually generates income and pays the bills? So that's the dream that we want to explore a little bit over the next 30 minutes. Really quickly for background, these are our 3 listings. My place in San Francisco, which is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom in Noe Valley. I always rent out the entire place. Tammy's place in Seattle.
Alex?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it seems like your presentation is only showing the front, the first slide, and actually people are not able to see the other slides, the rest of the slides. They're just seeing, yeah, we're not seeing any of that just now.
Do you see the San Francisco, Seattle, Tasman slide right now?
I do, but it seems like the people, let me see if can I see? Okay, now I can hear, but see, not as long as I can hear, that's good. Part of the community is saying that they cannot see you. Can someone?
They can only see the slides, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing the slide, but I'm seeing now the second slide with the San Francisco, Seattle, and New Zealand home, and I don't know why. Well, see now, but then when you do something, it goes away. I don't understand. Okay, let's continue, and because they say that they could see it now, so hopefully that stays. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
All right, then just Evelyn, jump in if we don't see what you see. So if anything goes wrong, just let us know and jump in.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
So the most important thing is if I wasn't able to still provide a good guest experience, then I wouldn't remote promotion. So this is actually a picture of some guests in my home 2 months ago. And I wasn't able to be able to them, so I didn't meet them when they arrived, and I didn't see them throughout their stay. I was out of town helping my grandmother move actually at the time, and they sent me this picture. I was in communication with them a lot while during their stay. It was really fun communication, very engaging, and so they sent me this picture. And this is my goal every time, that even if I'm not there, that this is the experience. Like, this is the pleasure and happiness that my guests experience at my home.
But there's a problem, and the problem is that obviously there's a lot of anxiety for us around it because we know that there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and we know that many of us are quite particular about letting our own personality shine through. So that's the part that we want to talk about. Let me skip really quickly forward, and Tammy's going to talk a little bit about some of the touches that she applies for her hosting style.
Well, we just want to, one of the things that we were both nervous about losing is those things that are the special touches that we do as hosts. That, as Evelyn pointed out earlier, it's one thing to hire someone to clean your home, but it's another level of responsibility and detail to have someone helping with your hospitality touches. And those are the things that are really the most important. So if you take a minute to think about what are your special touches as a host, and those are the things that probably give most of us anxiety, that you want to have those things done. When we asked this question in Paris, some people left fresh baked bread, and a lot of people leave notes for their guests. And if I have guests who are coming who I know are hikers, then I want to leave a hiking book. So all of those things that we do to provide special touches for our guests, those are the things that we don't want to have lost when someone else is handling that for us.
So with all of this introduction, let's jump straight into it. So what we're about to do is we're going to present 27 ideas to you that we've worked with in the past on how you can connect with your guests even if you're not there. Specifically, we're going to group what we're talking about in the next 25 minutes or so into 3 sections. The first section is about communication. We think communication is incredibly important, and it's all about how do you feel close with your guests even if you're far away, and how do you use communication to enable that. The second section is about design. It's not just about the design of your home, but it's about the design of the guest experience. There's lots of things that you can do.
Alex?
Yes?
I'm sorry. Are you still just showing slide number 2? Because that's all we have.
No, I'm actually on slide, like it should say Zen and the art of hosting from afar. Like, let me see what's going on. Can you see it now?
Now you can, yes.
And you just see the slide now, right?
Yeah, and the people still cannot see it. I think it's the slide presentation that is a problem. We might need to do me a favor, just email it to me, and I think let's just put you on screen, and I'll manage the slides from over here, just because people are having problems with it. Tammy,
actually, if we do that, easiest thing is go to getproperly.com. At the very bottom of the screen, you see a download link, and just download it. You'll have it in 1 minute.
Okay.
Awesome.
So do me a favor, just present yourself so people can at least just see you guys.
Okay.
And that because they're having a process of, yes. Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So let me end the screen sharing here. Now you see us again, right?
I'm downloading. Yes, I can see you. Guys, can you see them?
Okay.
Can you see them, please? Okay, so like that, and that's a good.
Okay, and Evelyn, were you able to find the presentation?
Yes, I am here, and I'm going to share it in a minute.
Yeah.
I will be
Awesome.
your.
Did you see
I will
us?
be your.
I can see your comments up.
I know. I'm gonna be your screen. I'm gonna be your girl.
Awesome. Okay, like a few for
Those are my happy guests, in case you didn't get to see them previously.
Oh, that's it. Right, there you are.
Okay.
And this, I want to say something about these folks actually. 2 weeks after I got back from Paris, she wrote to me and said, "Oh my gosh, it just occurred to me that you may have been in Paris when the attack happened. Are you okay?" How sweet is that? So like that's some of the relationships that I've been able to develop with guests, even though we've never met in person. It was so touching that she wrote and asked.
Yeah, I feel the same way. You know, the first person that actually contacted me was Maria, who's on the talk here. So it is always amazing when your community is so empowering. It's so great. All right. So this is about your sanity, and then we're going down to tell us about yourself.
Like we had Zen at, like, just actually skip a few forward, like we had this slide that says Zen and the art of hosting from afar.
Okay, which is
like one down.
Right then.
Yep, there we go. One more.
And then one more. Okay.
All right.
There we are.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yep, so three sections. First section is about communication, how to feel close when you're far away, and there's a lot of things that we can do by communicating with our guests and managing expectations. Second section that we are about to talk about is how do you design not just your house, but how do you design the entire guest experience so they feel welcome, they feel that they know you, even though you're not there. And the last section is the part that actually created the most headache for us, which is how do you manage operations remotely? And I know from a lot of you that that's something you're very interested in. I'm sort of keeping an eye on the questions on the right, and we're going to try to answer them as we go through the rest of the presentation. Let's jump straight into the communication section. Evelyn, if you want to advance one, just go down one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, one more.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, so the first thing that I do, and I started doing this because I'm genuinely interested in people. Previously I was working in social services, and so I love people. I love getting to know who people are, and I especially like to know who's coming to my home. So I always read people's profiles, I read people's reviews, and I ask a lot of specific questions ahead of time about why people are coming, so that then I can start to tailor their experience. And so some examples, if I read someone's profile and I see that they like to practice yoga, then I'll let them know which yoga studio I go to in my neighborhood. So it provides ways to start to connect with people, and you can start to tailor their experience.
Second point, Evelyn,
yes.
if you, sorry?
Yeah, and let me ask you a question, Tammy. What happens when they don't have, the profile is kind of limited, you know, like sometimes some people, they just write like, I'm from Seattle, and you have nothing else, or when they don't have any reviews and things like that. Because I mean, I take anybody, I take newbies. I actually don't mind having new guests, new users. So what do you normally do?
I do the same thing, but then I do that in my communication. So before my guests come to stay, I always, at least 2 weeks in advance, I send them an email, and it has a full guide of my home and my neighborhood and a little bit about who I am. And I also ask people questions. So I ask, I provide sort of a concierge service for people. So I'll say, what brings you to Seattle? What can I make any recommendations? What are, so that, and some people aren't very forthcoming, but most people I feel like really want to engage. I mean, I think it's part of what is appealing about the share economy to all of us, because we miss being connected with each other. And so when someone's asking about, tell me about your travels, people are excited to talk about why they're coming. And so even if they haven't provided information in profiles or reviews, that's your opportunity to start to engage people and help, start to build an exchange of information and start building a relationship with those guests. So I just ask a lot of questions.
And like Christy, I wanted to answer your question. It really depends. Like Christy asked, how many emails back and forth do we send before we accept someone? It really depends on how much information they provide. It can be a little bit awkward sometimes to ask detailed questions. So one way I do it is I sort of frame it by saying, what's the purpose of your visit? So I can make you feel more comfortable. I can make you stay more comfortable. And that's typically a great opportunity for them to volunteer information. They say that they're going to visit relatives, or they're here for a wedding. So it gives me a great in, right? Like not sounding nosy, but it gives me an in to basically understand what the purpose of the visit is by telling them that I'm there for them and I'm going to do whatever I can to make their stay more comfortable if I know the context of the visit. So it really depends. Some people are very, very detailed and describe exactly what they do. In that case, it might just be 1 or 2 emails back and forth.
And to Christy, to follow up in your question a little bit, I let the guest kind of, so I initiate communication, and then I really take leadership or take my lead from the guest. So if they respond with just a little bit of information, then I'll sort of leave it at that. But if someone's engaging more and it becomes more of a conversation, then I'm certainly, up for that.
Again, one quick housekeeping note: a lot of people are asking how they can get this presentation. Send us an email or just go to Get Properly, GET Properly, as in doing something properly.com /Badia, BADIA, and you'll, at the bottom of the screen, you'll find a link to download the entire presentation. Let me jump on to the next point. We think it's really important to actually allow your guests, and that's, Evelyn, that's number 2. It's really important to allow your guests to get to know you. So we actually make a point out of leaving some things that are personal about us at the house, and also sort of letting them experience a little bit who we are. We have a detailed profile. We try to convey as much as possible about who we are, because it makes them feel that they know us. And establishing that relationship at the beginning becomes really important, because it's much harder to give a negative review to someone that you actually feel you're connected with. And it's also much easier for us, like problems will happen, but it's much easier for us to fix problems if we've established that kind of relationship. Let me jump right away to 3, the third idea.
Oh, Keith, that's asking for the URL again. It's getproperly.com. /Badia? Yeah, getproperly.com /Badia, BADIA, Evelyn's name. And if you scroll to the very bottom of the page, you'll find the presentation there. And there's another question about responding to guest inquiries. Do you have to get those emails and acceptance within the first 24 hours in order to maintain a good response rate? My understanding is that you do. Within that first 24 hours, you have to either accept or decline. And that does impact your response rate. Evelyn, yeah.
Evelyn, you just... you're also on mute, Evelyn. Evelyn, you have mute on, I think.
Yep. Sorry. I pressed the wrong button. Look, my hair is up. All of that. I'm sorry. Keep talking. I'm going to find the presentation again.
Okay.
All right. Let's go to the next point. Another point that's really important to us is to make it a very personalized message to our guests. So they don't feel that this is some property management company, that they feel that we know them. We always address them by name. We always try to reference some of the things that they told us about themselves. So if they're coming for a wedding, like we'll tell them, sort of we ask them about their plans and we congratulate them, or if it's the groom and the bride, or if it's their family. Basically to make sure that they understand that we know it, this is personal, this is about them, this is not some generic service. The fourth idea, or the fourth point that's been very important for us is, if you go down 1, is it's very important to manage expectations of your guests. We tell them that we will not be there. We don't want them to be surprised. So we're very clear about the fact that we're not going to be there when they're here. We tell them if and how we can be reached. And if we can't be reached, it happened to me quite a few times that I happen to be on a plane right at the moment when the guests arrive. Then I make absolutely sure that there is someone that they can reach if anything goes wrong. So it's very, very important to make sure that we clearly manage expectations and they know that we're not there. What that then means is that we spend a lot more time preparing for the visit and sort of establishing a bit of a rapport with them at the beginning, so they feel we've taken care of them even though we're not there.
Write a detailed guest guide. This is something that I did initially, and I have information about myself. I have detailed information about the home. The information that I have about the home is practical things like this is how you adjust the heat. This is where you'll find the fans if it's too cold. You know, if you've arrived in winter and you didn't bring enough warm stuff and I've got stuff there that fits you, go for it. So it's like specific information, but it's also information about that are interesting things about my home. Like my grandmother's a painter, and so I reference her paintings. I have a friend who's a poet, and I talk about those. So it's another way to start to let people know who you are and to find connection points and to give them things that might be interesting to them for their stay. So I have a printed guide at my house, and I also, as I said earlier, will send all that information 2 to 3 weeks minimally before my guests arrive. And most people read it thoroughly and enjoy it. There are also some apps that have been created that you can create that sort of a guest guide on an app and send that to your guests. So I've been in the process of getting that put together as well.
So like that's like another point here. There is a whole list of resources that we have. There's a number of apps. There is one called Hostfully. There is one called Coral Life that we've been trying out. We'll send you, or anybody who's interested, we're very happy to send you a note, sort of a cheat sheet that we use ourselves of all of the different apps or technology tools that we've seen to create guest guides. Of course, there's also like Airbnb's own neighborhood guide that you can obviously use, and we've used that too. So there's a number of tools, and we're happy to share.
And I actually, Alex and Tammi, I actually have a template that I offer for people to just fill out, because even though you have an app, people like a hardcover. They like to browse to something when they're in the house. And my guidebook is something that my guests comment in my reviews. Mm-hmm. Because it's so detailed and you provide so much, and it just stops the guests from being confused. They don't know your neighborhood. They don't know which one is the best bakery. They don't know where the post office is, or in a case where the hospital is. I've had guests that had to go for some, emergency medical situation, and you have to have that information on the guidebook. And I have seen some of the apps that different people have created, but I always feel you also still need a physical book.
Yeah,
people
I very, very much agree with it. And actually what you're looking at on this slide is my physical book.
Yeah.
Technology may or may not work, but paper will always work. So I think it's really, really helpful for people to have something in their hands just when they have that question of, oh my God, how do I operate the DVD player? I've never used it before. Like they have something, they know exactly where it is. We put it right in the middle of the kitchen table. We also tell them in advance that there will be a guest guide for them, so they know that everything they need to know about the house is going to be in one place and they have easy access to it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know. So, I mean, my guests tend to be an older generation, at least for one of my listings. So you have to know if your guests are tech savvy or if they're not, and give them options beyond technical apps and things like that, and just give them some paper, and it's something that if you keep it, if you do it as a Google document or something like that, you could just reprint it all the time, because it does get used a lot. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry, go ahead, continue.
Right, now the next thing is again something that's very important for us. We call it a home team, or like home team is really the word that we use for it. Like make sure that there's someone you trust, someone who's going to be there if something goes wrong. This picture is one of Tammi's best friends, like childhood friends, Jennifer, who's Tammi's home team. And anytime Tammy's away, like having that person just on standby, sort of to know that someone that you trust is going to be there if something terrible happens, you have a plumbing problem, like the guests lock themselves out, you need a locksmith. Like basically it's a huge amount of peace of mind that it gives you, knowing that someone's there for you and actually knowing that you're prepared if something goes wrong.
And I have about 5 people who are accessible to me. And so part of it is really just like knowing who your resources are. So it could be a neighbor, it could be a family member, it could be someone that you used to work with or a former coach. I mean, but people also use paid services. But I personally feel more comfortable with having people who is one of my best friends, a couple of people who've lived in my home, someone that I used to work with. My brother lives close. And some people are available for just if there are emergencies that I need to get in touch with people. But some of those folks also help me with my turnovers.
Okay, next idea is be in contact frequently with your guests. And there's at least 3 points at which we contact our guests. That's number 7, Evelyn. Number 1, we always get in touch with them when they check in to know that everything was okay and they checked in all right. Number 2, we check in with them once at mid-stay to make sure everything's okay. And then we send them a message, of course, the day of checkout, just to remind them what the checkout procedure is. Even though in our case, it's extremely simple, but just to sort of give them peace of mind that they know what they need to know. Those 3 things, I think we find very important because, again, it helps very, very much with the review because that way you're sure that you know if something went wrong and it's not going to be a surprise when they check out that there was something they really didn't like.
And there's a question about how much do you pay your home team? I think some of that depends on, what the rate is where you live. And as Evelyn said at the beginning, she pays her folks more than she would if it was someone who was simply coming to clean the house, because it is more than that. And I do the same thing. So I would find out what the going rate, hourly rate is in your area, and then think about how much extra you're asking people to do and increase the rate in that regard.
Bruna is asking the big city rate. I actually pay about $100 per turnover. Mm-hmm. It becomes expensive, but it is just a little bit of a peace of mind, guys. You have to include the expense of doing business when you're not home. And like Tammy said, it becomes like if there's an emergency, if they have to contact, this is people that are spending their time, and it is a lot. And mind you, the turnover to actually clean the house takes about 2 hours, which is not a long time, but it's the peace of mind that they know who the handyman person is, that they might have to leave keys behind and things like that. So it is about that rate if you want. But I mean, some people pay even more than that, okay? Just so that you have a figure. Okay.
One of the things that I've been doing is there's also, this is a service that you can very easily trade with other hosts, because the reality is that 99.9% of the time you don't actually need it and everything goes smoothly. So it's just sort of having a peace of mind that someone is there should something happen. And what I do is I know a few other hosts and we just cover for each other. So if I know I'm on a plane and I can't be reached, I'll make sure that another host friend of mine is going to be able to be reached, and like that takes care of that then. The actual cleaning, I think it very, very much, or the actual turnover, it very much depends on how large your place is. I've done anything between $75 to $125, and that's for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, but with quite a few complications. I have a hot tub and a couple of things that are more complicated to clean. So it's very, very much depends on your own circumstances. Let me jump. Sorry.
So someone mentioned a duplex, and my house is actually, there's a lower unit downstairs. And so I've decided that it's peace of mind for me to just rent that out to a full-time tenant. And I reduce his rent, and he's he's the person who's on site. He does some turnovers for me and he helps out, but he's also, guests know that there's someone right there who can help out. So that's a decision that I've made to not have both places as Airbnb rentals, but one is a full-time rental and the upstairs is Airbnb when I'm not home.
Let me jump to the 8th idea. So far, everything's sort of been relatively cut and dry and a lot of things sound relatively obvious. Be creative. That's sort of a good point. What you're looking at in this slide is actually a picture of one of the walls in my pantry. And what I did, you see it in the background, is with chalk, I drew a map of the neighborhood and I put business cards of each of the restaurants that I like on there. What ended up happening is, you see it in the far background, is the guests are starting to write their own reviews about the places that I recommend to them onto that big chalkboard. And it's actually been quite a bit of fun. So then you see people actually drawing things, and the wall took on a life of its own. For us, it became a great way of conveying information about the neighborhood in an easy way to guests and make it very accessible to them. But also sort of creating interaction between the guests and other guests and us, because now it's interactive and they can actually annotate our ideas or our recommendations for other guests. It's been quite a bit of fun. Someone had to get a haircut, really liked the place that we recommended to them, so they ended up getting some coupons from them and then offered them to other guests and wrote recommendations. So it's try to be creative. We can get outside sort of the normal, sort of the obvious things that all of us do. And this is one of the things that worked really well for us.
I have a magnetic poetry set on my refrigerator, and I often come home to guests having written me little notes or poems, and that's a lot of fun too.
Next point, number 9 is, that's a very obvious one, be responsive. Make sure that when a guest has a problem, get back to them right away. Let me jump to the last. Sorry.
I think it's important to note that you'll hear in Alex and I talking that we're both very much still the people who are in communication with our guests, and so there are only some times that we turn that over to other people. So it could be, when I was flying to Paris for the Open, I had a guest checking in during that time. So during that time, I said I'll be on a plane, so I won't be accessible. If you have any trouble, Ian's your person to contact. Here's his information. Make sure that Ian knew. But for the most part, I'm the person taking reservations. I'm the person answering questions. I'm the person responding. So I think if you want to be a remote host often and you're not interested in that part of it, then you might be better off to hire someone to manage it for you.
Next idea, number 10, Evelyn, is include some personal touches. There's one thing that's really worked for me, which is I always do handwritten notes. Now, sometimes I might not be there, so I'm asking whoever is doing the turnover for me, and that might even be an on-demand cleaning company, I'm asking them to handwrite the note, and it's what I do is I have something that I handwrite, and then they just write the name onto the envelope. But just saying, welcome home, John and family, it makes a big difference. And having it handwritten just gives it that personal touch that people feel that you care about them, you connect with them, and it's not just some standard thing. I also, I always leave something special behind, something that connects them with the neighborhood. Like Tammy, for instance, has peaches in her backyard during certain parts of the year, and she collects them, puts them into a fruit basket. Like something that conveys to them that this is not a hotel. This is staying with a person.
Another story I want to tell about, building guest relationships is I had some gals who were coming from the Bay Area, and it was 3 women, and they were coming to celebrate for a collective celebration of their 30th birthdays. And so I had Ian. I wasn't there, but I had Ian hang a happy birthday banner. And he happens to be the owner of a hard cider company. He's the guy who lives downstairs, and he was doing that turnover for me. So I said, hey, these gals are coming, and they're coming to celebrate their 30th birthday party. So hang a banner. And he said, oh, do you think they'd want some cider for their, for their celebration? And so that's another aspect of, I think one of the reasons that we're all drawn to Airbnb is because there is human relationships involved, and it's not just a business transaction, but it's more relationship based. And so including people who are doing the turnovers, who are going to be in contact with your guest, bringing them into the relationship building, I think is really important too. So, and then those become personal touches.
Okay, so that was the communication section. Communication is incredibly important. Let's jump to the next section, which is design, and specifically designing the guest experience. So, Evelyn, if you jump one, what we found is that your guests, there's an aspect of voyeurism in the Airbnb experience. So your guests are actually interested in your life, and obviously they're interested in your town. They want to live like a local. So sharing a little bit about yourself is really, really important. So sharing a little bit about yourself is important, but if you jump to the next slide, they probably don't want to see your sock drawer. So it's important sort of to make sure, like, leave them enough space so they feel welcome, they feel it's their space, they have a closet for themselves, but then at the same time share a little bit about yourself. So the next section is about a series of ideas of how we share a little bit about our personality and make them feel welcome through the design of the guest experience.
And some of these things we've talked about. So this is food is certainly, people love that. So as Alex said, I have a fruit tree in my backyard. So during that 6 weeks of that season, I'll bring fruit in and leave them and say, if you enjoy it, please help yourself in the backyard. Alex has a cheese shop in his neighborhood that's really fantastic. So he'll leave cheeses from the cheese shop. I have a friend who, Pike Place Market is one of the sort of iconic places to visit when you're in Seattle. And I have a friend who has a booth there, and so I always send my guests and say, go visit Melissa at the Lavender booth. So helping people, connect with your city and with your neighborhood and with your space is really important to do.
And connecting through the stomach is a really good way to connect. So food to us is something that's very, very important. Let me jump to idea number 12. That's again something pretty obvious. Share local experiences. Now, again, sort of stay away from the obvious touristy stuff, but what we like to do is we like to give people ideas on how to explore our neighborhood. And there's a couple of technology tricks we use. There's an interesting company called Detour that has audio guides, like very quirky audio guides for some cities in the world. And there's a couple of other solutions to that. Again, we have some of those ideas in the source file that we'll be happy to share. But we also sort of just look around the neighborhood and then recommend very specific things to our guests so they feel like locals. So the sort of the sense of being a local, the sense of being guided by someone who lives there is something very important. If we jump to the next idea, that's about sharing something about yourself. It's actually 14. We jumped around in the order a little bit. What you're looking at, actually, no, sorry, it was exactly that one. Sorry, Evelyn, go up. The two angels with wings. What you're looking at here is a picture of two New Orleans-based hosts. I stayed at their place a few months ago when I was at a conference in New Orleans. What was interesting is if you look at the picture, the small inset at the bottom of the screen, the entire place was decorated with those huge wings. Those wings they make themselves. It's their Mardi Gras costume, and then every year they go out, and every year they have a different set of wings: black wings, white wings, and that's really their personality that shines through because it's the #1 design element of their house. And then they have pictures around the house that shows them wearing their wings at Mardi Gras in New Orleans. So that's the kind of idea, like share a little bit about yourself, something that's interesting, something that makes people feel belong. Let me jump to the next one about local knowledge.
So this is, we've talked about the guidebook, and this is the kind of information that's included oftentimes in a guidebook. So letting people know if people are coming with kids, certainly pointing out where playgrounds are that are close. If guests are, I've had lots of people ask me for recommendations for running and bike trails. And so just sharing all that information ahead of time with people so that they really feel at home in your neighborhood. And again, those are the kinds of things that distinguish us from a hotel or even from a VRBO listing because it's more interactive and more personally relationship-based.
Okay, next idea, Evelyn, if you jump down one, is about music. Music also connects, and there's a couple of things we've done to integrate that. We started putting together playlists for guests. I got an entertainment center, and I have a couple of playlists set up there where we show local bands from San Francisco, just show them also radio stations, internet radio stations that we think are interesting. There's an element of, again, voyeurism, like exploring what other people are interested in. And it's an opportunity for us to sort of show them a little bit of our tastes or let them browse through something that they may not have otherwise found. So I know a great jazz station from Belgium that I listen to. And there's interesting playlists about songs about San Francisco, bands from San Francisco, up and coming bands from San Francisco. All of those are sort of little touches where you can make someone feel more connected. A much more obvious thing is obviously tell them about local events. If there's a big event happening, a band playing in town, some interesting band that you like that's playing at the local neighborhood dive bar, tell them about it, and it makes them feel they're connected, it makes them feel that they're locals.
I have friends who are musicians and artists, and so if they're playing, I'll let people know that. Just go check out my friend Jennifer's show. She's playing at whatever club.
Yeah, I actually have taken guests whom I really loved to the Moth, which is like this NPR thing so it's sort of like something totally local that they would not do any other way, or they would not probably even find out. So I love that idea of giving them something of a local event and things like that, because that's what you want to do, and that's why they're staying at an Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
Right, jumping on to the next one, number 15. share some design ideas and inspiration. What you're looking at here, that's one of the lights at my house that I built myself. It's actually was something very, very simple. It's a bucket that I got at IKEA, and then I put a light in the middle, and I filled it with bottles of an Italian drink called San Vitel. I'm Italian, and that's the drink that I grew up with, and it makes for a very interesting light fixture. And it's actually quite interesting how much positive response I got from guests that said, hey, that's a great idea. I'd love to make that myself. How do I do it? I have some panels where I put moss onto them, and they become an interesting decorative feature in the house. And guests have asked me, how do I do this? It's sort of like people like to find inspiration. They like to get new ideas. So if you have ideas, put them around your house, and I think you'll get very, very positive response from your guests. I see that we're at idea number 15 out of 27, so we'll jump ahead a little bit quickly. Next one is similar idea around books, magazines, and movies. Again, there's an element of voyeurism. People they're interested in what you're reading. Make it interesting for them, like let them explore a little bit. Of course, there is local guides, as in how to visit San Francisco, whatever your city is. But I also leave books out that I think guests might be interested in. And I was really surprised that they actually end up reading my books and commenting on them to me, which is something I was very fascinated by. I started as a student in London as a sort of far left Marxist, and then ended up being a venture capitalist, and my bookshelf reflects that. So on the far left, I have Karl Marx's Das Kapital, and then on the far right, I have Margaret Thatcher's autobiography. And one of my guests actually commented on that and said, wow, it's an interesting life you led. Like, I wonder what happened. So, give them a little bit about yourself, like let them find interesting things that they may not have otherwise found. Next point is about the kitchen.
Share a fully stocked kitchen. And Alex and I, since the spaces that we host are our personal homes, we have really all of our high quality, good cooking and baking items. We don't, remove anything from the house when someone is staying there. So it's got all the cooking essentials and basics. And I'm really clear about telling people, if you get inspired while you're on vacation to bake something or make a meal, please do. Feel free to use anything in the kitchen. I even have things in my kitchen that belong to my grandmother's. And, so those are the kinds of things sometimes that we feel protective of and maybe would be inclined to remove so that they're kept safe. But I leave those things. I think it's part of the experience for people. Certainly letting people know where there are cookbooks, aprons, whatever they might need to be able to make a meal, I think is really important. Alex has a lot of toys in his kitchen. I'm a little bit more old school.
I'm a gadget guy, so
he's a gadget
lots
guy,
of toys. So. But also, sort of another point is delights and surprises. I don't just leave cheap things out. Like I really like truffle oil, and I leave the truffle oil out too. And it's actually, I've been surprised. People comment very favorably on it, and then they actually, it's like they're very responsible. I said, like, really enjoyed it, and really appreciate that you actually leave it out for us. And I tell them, use anything you find in the kitchen, use it, and sort of like having that little surprise for them, like having truffle salt or truffle oil or something out there. Makes a big difference, I think, and I've never seen anybody take advantage of it, like as in sort of using a whole bottle or anything like that. So I think again, it connects you, it builds a relationship. Number 18 is share the trappings of being a local. Sort of all the practicalities of living in a neighborhood, like if that's a parking pass, it's if there's a transit card in your city. Where there's a fixed cost to have the transit card. And what we do is we have a transit card, like we pay for the cost of it, and then people can just recharge it. Leaving an umbrella behind. Understanding what the purpose of the visit is. And if the purpose of the visit is that they're here on business, we leave an iron out and an ironing board so they can actually have freshly ironed shirts in the morning. Or shoe polish. So just make sure that they have what they need to feel like a local.
So there's a couple of questions about what do you do if something breaks, and questions about theft and damage. I've had, and Evelyn, you've hosted more than I have, so maybe you'd want to speak to this too, but I've had over 80 guests in my house. I've had 2 glasses and one French press pot broken in the entire time. And I don't charge for those kinds of things. I mean, guests are always really apologetic, and I just, one of my main values about hosting is generosity. And so if it was something big, it might be, I might handle that a little bit differently. But otherwise, I just, thanks for letting me know. Don't worry about it. So that's how I approach it.
And that's like I do it the same way. I mean, I think that it really depends on your price point also and what happened. I've always like any set of guests that I have, like if anything went wrong, which happens very, very rarely, they're the ones to tell me, and they've been offering to pay for it. And typically, I don't accept it. It's typically small stuff, as Maria just said, and it also depends on your price point. I mean, my average nightly rate, like we're lucky because in San Francisco here rates have gone up quite a bit. It's $500. So if someone breaks something, I'm not going to ask them to pay for that. But of course, it depends, because if you're in a different price point, and if they offer, then you may accept it.
And I think one of the things that I found is that because I do so much relationship building with guests ahead of time, I feel like I have friends coming to stay in my home, and my guests, I think oftentimes or most of the time, feel like they're coming to stay in a family, they're coming to stay at their sister's house or their college roommate's house or something like that. So there's this, I have found with the relationship building that I do with guests ahead of time, that there's really a mutual respect, and that people are really, really kind and generous and honest about things. So I, like I said, in my 80 plus times of hosting, there have only been a couple of times when I felt awkward returning to my house, like it wasn't treated with respect. But for the most part, I have had, really lovely guests.
And I want to address Elizabeth's question about having something that is sentimental value for you. Is do not have it out. I'm sorry, you're just going to need to put it away, because things break, and there's no replacement for it. But so what I do is, if I have something, first of all, I don't have anything that if it was to break, I will feel horrible about it. And actually, I'm the one that broke something that I was like, oh no, I broke it. But I don't have anything that is such of sentimental value. But if I was to have it, I will try not to be in a common area with my guests, because things do happen, and especially if I don't want the guests to use it, just because they might, even if you have a label on it, they might just not see it or might not read it, and they just use it, and everybody feels bad because you feel that your house is being abused, and they might feel bad because they're like, oops, sorry, it was there. I have had things, I had a door that a guest broke. It was an accident, and he actually told me about it. I've had guests not tell me about certain things that broke, and I tried, this was before the guarantee and before a lot of different things, and it was just a bigger pain to go and look for the money than it was to resolve it myself. I do have a deposit. I haven't had a need to use it or to request it. Things to break, but it's normally small things like a glass or something like that, and nothing big of that I feel like, oh my God, what are they gonna do? And also in reference of that, what are they gonna do? Take a TV under their arms? I mean, and you have to remember, one of the reasons why I go through the Airbnb site is because there is a guarantee. Airbnb has their information. I could go to Airbnb and say, hey, this guy did this kind of behavior, or this happened. So you have that whole thing about it, okay?
So I want to just, sorry, Evelyn.
Go ahead. Maria has a question about how do you remote host,
Yeah. So I wanted to address that. So Maria, a lot of what we've been talking about in this design section is how you set up the house. In the communication section, we talked a lot about, because we want to design an experience that still feels like a personable experience when we're not there. So a lot of it is in the design and what you leave for the guest and how you set up the space so that it feels like a personal experience. And a lot of what we talked about in the communication section is all stuff that can be done from wherever you are. And then the next section is probably going to be really helpful, because the biggest headache about hosting remotely is the operations, which we're moving into. So your question was perfectly timed.
Yes. So we're now talking about sort of the operational challenges, but really want to reinforce Tammy's point. We pay very, very special attention to doing all of these, like sort of to create more of a connection with the guest than we would usually do because we're not there. So all of the things that we talked about doing in the design section, we pay much, much more emphasis on that than we would otherwise if we were there, because it allows us to connect even though we're not there. So let's dive into the operation sections and tell you a couple of the tricks that we are using to make that run smoothly. Very first thing is we make sure that we have a remote access method, i.e. we try to figure out the key exchange issue. There's really three parts to it. I'm using a smart lock. I'm using August. There's 3 or 4 different brands. They all do about the same thing. It allows you to send electronic keys to your guests and give them access, like give all of your guests a key without them actually being able to lose it, and then you have to deal with replacing keys. If and when you do that, make absolutely sure that you always have a backup plan. As we said at the beginning, technology can help a lot, but technology also has a way of failing when you least need it. So we always make sure that we give them 2 ways of getting into the house. Number 1, we'll send them an electronic key, and number 2, there is a physical lockbox somewhere and a backup plan, because you always, that it's going to happen one day that someone comes home at 2 o'clock in the morning and lost their key and their phone's out of battery. And then you don't want to be in a situation where you have to trek across town or worse to actually let them in. Next thing we do is I'm using a connected thermostat and connected fire alarms. In my case, I'm using Nest. Again, there is a number of different solutions for that, and we have that in our source file. It does a couple of things for me. It allows me to actually, if I'm not there in between guest stays, it allows me to turn down the temperature so I'm not heating the place for no reason. And it also allows me to make the place comfortable a few hours before the guests arrive, so we know that they arrive to a warm house, or to a house that's actually at a comfortable temperature. What the connected smoke detectors do for me is they alert me in advance when the battery runs out, so I don't have to worry about that, and I know that my guests are safe. So those are a couple of the technology tricks. The next area is for people who live in a building with a shared entrance. There's key exchanges. Airbnb promoted a couple of those at Airbnb Open this year. Depending on what city you live in, you have to figure out how to let people into your building. One way of doing that is using a key exchange company. Key Cafe is one of them, and then there's quite a few others. Typically, that works in such a way that they deposit keys, or they allow you to deposit your key at a local cafe with extended hours. So if your guests arrive late and there's no one there to let them in, they can just pick up their key from a cafe.
So the next thing that we're moving into is Alex's app that he created, which the first time that I was hosting remotely, I was going to be in England for three weeks. So I spent extensive time with a friend of mine who was going to be doing the turnovers for me ahead of time, showing him everything in the house. I created long lists. I'm sure that people can relate to that. I would send extensive emails before every turnover. And so it was actually one of the first things that Alex and I talked about last year at the Airbnb Open was this app that he was developing. And it has, the first time that I used it, earlier this year, I was leaving the next morning. I'd gotten a last-minute reservation, so I wasn't going to have time to train someone to do the turnover. Ian had been in my house for maybe 5 minutes total. And so it was 1 o'clock in the morning. I was leaving the next morning, and I started to create the job, and it was like, I don't know if I can do that. So I started to write the email, and then I thought, no, it's actually creating the job on the app is going to be a lot easier. So it took me about a half an hour. And I was able to send that job to him, and it's a visual checklist, and it's Alex's baby, so I'll let him talk more about that.
Yeah, my problem was a very specific one. Basically, I'm using, because I have a very variable schedule, and my place when I'm not there is constantly booked. I had to rely a lot on on-demand cleaning companies like Handy. The problem with them is that the quality is hugely variable. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's terrible. But another problem is that I typically almost always get a new person. Every single time I have a new person, which makes the whole turnover job really, really hard, because I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, there's a hot tub, there's a coffee machine that they need to clean. And explaining all of that can take a long time. I put a guidebook for the cleaner together, and that didn't work because sometimes they didn't find it, sometimes they didn't read it, sometimes they read 2 pages but not the remainder. So there was always something that went wrong. So what I ended up creating is like the app that you see, which essentially allows you to drag and drop icons of what you'd like to get done, where you'd like it to get done. Like that's anything from how you'd like your welcome basket, gift basket to look, that you'd like a bottle of champagne in the fridge, how you'd like your rooms to be presented. So it's visual, it's easy, it's automatically translates in any language. So if your cleaner doesn't speak or is not a native English speaker and they speak Spanish, Portuguese, like it works for that too. But most importantly, it gave me peace of mind because they check every task off, so I know it was done. So anyway, that was my solution to the problem. We are giving it away for free. We're working with Airbnb because they'd like us to be, like all of us, to be better hosts. So like it's available for free for a short period of time, but for everyone in this webinar, you can use it for free for the next 12 months. And you can find it on our website. Now, again, this is technology. At the end of the day, you need people to actually do the job. So if Evelyn, if you jump to the next one, for your turnover help, make absolutely sure you have a plan B and a plan C. It happened to me quite a bit that I have someone scheduled to come, and at 9, like they're supposed to come at 9 o'clock in the morning. At 9:15, I get a call saying the call didn't work and we're not showing up, and then I'm out of luck. If I'm not on site, that becomes a huge problem. So I always make sure I have a plan B because these things do happen. Again, if I have a checklist in place, then it helps me a lot to actually convey the instruction to someone who wasn't planning to come, who doesn't actually have any background, and make sure that they're well prepared. Let me jump to...
Leah's saying not all cleaners have smartphones, unfortunately. So Alex just came up with a good solution for that. Yeah,
and I developed a solution for that too. I just put the visual checklist onto an Amazon Fire device. Costs me $35. I leave it at the house, and they simply swipe through that. And it's extremely simple for them. They literally just swipe forwards and backwards and tap on the things that they've done. So that's a $35 investment, and with that now I cover everyone. Doesn't matter whether they have a smartphone or not.
Are you going to tell us on the resources that Amazon
sorry?
Product?
Yeah, it's just like in my case, I use the cheapest tablet I can buy, which is the Amazon Fire. I mean, the cheapest sort of quality tablet that costs $50 usually. You can sometimes, I mean, I just got it 2 weeks ago for $35. So that's a small, it's Bruna, it's the Amazon Fire. And, you know, again, I'm not advertising any one specific product. That just happens to be one that worked for me. You will find tons of tablets, that sort of 7-inch tablets that you can get for $35 to $50, and most of them will do the trick. And that way, I've got something. Like, there's actually one really important message that I forgot. It also allows the cleaner to report damage back to me. So someone asked before, what about theft and damage? If I'm not at the place, I have to rely on whoever is doing the turnover for me to actually report to me what happened. And by using either their smartphone or by giving them a tablet, I make it very easy for them. In the app, there's a feature where they can take a picture, send me the picture back, and then I know that there's a huge red wine stain on the white sofa, and I know what to do about it. I can send a picture to Airbnb and then claim the deposit, and make sure that I get refunded for that. Next.
And I'm sorry, I saw that you guys are doing webinars teaching the app, I imagine is what it is. So guys, if you go to their getproperly.com site, you could get a lot of information, and they are doing webinars all the time about how to use their app and how to set it up and things like that. It's really simple. I mean, and all of your photos get transferred in because it's synced in with Airbnb. I love it. I mean, I think it's great.
Yeah, we just launched, so we are, you know, this is it's work in progress very much. But what you'll see is we're completely integrated with Airbnb, so you can connect your Properly account with your Airbnb account. It'll automatically download all of your pictures from Airbnb. So if you've got 20 pictures of your house on Airbnb, then those 20 pictures are automatically already in Properly, and you can use those as your first drop to actually annotate what you'd like to be done.
And then you can create extra pictures. So I have pictures of the locations of all of my cleaning supplies and the location of where the key is. And, you know, a lot of the pictures that I have in mind, I ask people to use those so that people can stage my house exactly how I want it staged. And then there's a checklist. And so I can look at the job when someone is done and make sure that, that people have done everything. You can also ask people to send verification pictures of specific things so that you get a picture of how it was left when you were done. Jennifer's asking, who's buying the flowers? Who's delivering the restock of house supplies?
That's a perfect question for the next slide, because that's exactly where we're going. Evelyn, if you go one down to number 26, is make a plan for restocking. So in our case, what we do is we're lucky that Seattle and San Francisco are two cities that are actually served by quite a number of on-demand services. There's Google Shopping Express, there is Prime Now by Amazon, there's Amazon Fresh, there is Postmates in San Francisco. So depending on where you live, there is quite a few services available that allow you to actually order things just when you need them. Again, in the app, it allows the cleaner or the turnover helper to tell me what's missing. So if I'm short on toilet paper, they'll send me, like out of the app, they can just take a picture of whatever is missing, and I then order it from Amazon Fresh or from Prime Now or whatever the service might be. And in San Francisco, I'm lucky I can get it often as early as 2 hours from now. That's, by the way, sort of on a side note, I also use that if something goes wrong. Like a few times, there was a small problem in my plans. Guests had an issue with something. I just send them a box of chocolates, and they get it, within 2 hours of telling me about the problem. It's amazing what an effect that has. As opposed to them remembering the problem, they end up remembering the box of chocolates and how quickly I responded to it. And I turned what could have been a negative experience into a very positive experience and a great review. So that's restocking is definitely very important.
And Jennifer's asking, that means I have to be there to accept the delivery. I don't know that.
Yeah, in my case, again, this happens mostly this works in big cities. I have instructions for any of those services to drop whatever it is that they're bringing on the porch, which means I'm not going to either disturb the guests or I can have it sent there just before the cleaner arrives. And then that way they can pick it up. Now, that very much depends on your personal circumstances. If you live in an apartment building, that may not work for you. It depends on the layout of your house.
And in my situation, I'm in Seattle probably, once or at least twice a month. And so I'll do a big shopping trip myself and leave those supplies at the house. But I leave food, I leave snacks and breakfast items for my guests. So there's some things that are perishable, but I build that into the turnover job. So the person who does the turnover for me also, goes to the store and buys milk and yogurt and, whatever the thing, bananas, fruit, whatever the things are that are perishable. For flowers, I have flowers in my backyard. So when they're in bloom, that's where the flowers come from. And during the off season, they come from, from the store.
Okay, now the very last point is number 27, and that's plan for things that will go wrong. And if you plan for them plan for things that might go wrong, if you plan for them, it's not going to be a problem. So there's 4 contacts that I always make sure I have ready. One for an electrician, one for a plumber, one for a locksmith, and one for general handyman. I very, very, very rarely use them, but just the peace of mind of knowing that I know who to call. I've worked with them before. When something happens, makes a huge, huge difference to me and gives me peace of mind when I'm far away. And
Elizabeth's asking a question. If we charge enough to cover these costs, we would have no guests. And, you can decide I choose to leave food for my guests and flowers and that sort of thing. And that works out for me. But you can be creative with special touches that you want to do so that it's not something that, feels like it's cost prohibitive for you.
One of the things sorry, Evelyn.
Hi, yeah, Elizabeth. What I've done in the past is also I change what I offer. Mm-hmm. I don't do fruit because it tends to go bad, but I do provide milk and some perishable. Like I do eggs, milk, and bread. I might be eliminating the bread just because not everybody uses it. So, and if it doesn't get used, then whoever's helping me out takes it, or I give it away to friends or things like that. But I have changed it. I used to provide fruit and I used to provide orange juice, but it was just going to waste. And just think about it. Just that is less than $10 a day. Mm-hmm. And you're keeping coffee and tea and let's say olive oil and things to cook with that are just there, and they don't get used up all the time by one particular guest, so that they're not being replenished every week or by every turnover. You just replenish it a couple of items, and it's really not that much. And it gives you so many brownie points. Your guests mention it all the time, whether they use it or not. And some people do use it and some people don't. I don't provide flowers. I might have a potted plant that has a flower or something like that. So I might, like right now, I just bought some poinsettias for the houses, even though it's Christmas and some people might not be Christian, but I have that, so it still has a little bit of things, but it's not something that dies. Okay.
Yeah, and it's Rebecca has a great point. You know, I like to have shelf-stable things that I don't need to worry about them going bad. I mean, leaving something in the fridge for your guests is awesome, but having something that's spoiled in the fridge is terrible. So I do make sure that every turnover, I specifically instruct the cleaner or the turnover help to clear out my fridge of anything that was from the previous guests. And one of the things I do is I have them take a picture so I know that the fridge was empty. This is something that can actually leave a very bad experience for people. And this way I know that it was taken care of. Like not clearing out the fridge is something that happens very, very frequently. Let me sort of jump to the very, very end of the presentation where we summarize everything. We ran a little bit over because a few of you had lots of questions, but we're very glad we tried to answer most of them. The key point of all of this is connection brings you closer, and if you're far away, you have to work much harder in establishing a relationship and a connection, but it pays back very, very nicely, and you'll see it in your reviews. We covered 3 sections. Number 1, how to communicate to establish a connection and really focus on that aspect. Number 2, how to design the experience in such a way so you share something of yourself even though you're not there. And then number 3, operations. And operations is really all about thinking ahead, be prepared and be organized. So when something happens that you weren't expected, like you're prepared for it. So that's really it. Evelyn, if you jump to the last slide, that shows you how to find us. Anybody who would like to get a copy of the presentation, just email Tammi or me at alex@getproperly.com or tammy@gmail.com. And then also we're very happy if anybody would like the app, go to our website, it's getproperly.com/Badia, and everyone who's in the webinar gets it for free. So any other questions that you have, ask us, and we try to answer them as best as we can. Thanks
Thank you,
very much.
Evelyn, for inviting us to do this. It's been fun.
And I know Evelyn has a lot more things to share with you, so I'll hand over back to you. And Evelyn, I think you're mute.
Thank you for telling me that I am mute. I mute myself because I make sounds over here. But if you guys, you know, if you have more questions, please answer them. Alice and Tammi have been amazing. Really, thank you guys so much for like providing all of this. It is a great presentation, and I'm glad you were here because I was not able to see your presentation during the open. They did so many. There was so much content that people were presenting, and I'm hoping that I get a lot more hosts. There's a few people already interested and some people already set up for next year. So I'm going to be doing these webinars with the host educators from the Airbnb Open. I know Airbnb is posting some of our webinars, and they posted mine from the presentation, my presentation at the Airbnb Open, but it was only 5 minutes. So they didn't do the entire show that I did in my entire thing. So I will be doing this later on, also my own presentation, what I did during the open. So again, thank you guys.
You're welcome.
They getproperly.com/Badia here. And let's just talk a little bit about, I'm just gonna share something here with you guys for just a nanosecond. Because it is after 2 o'clock. Can you believe it? We've been talking for over an hour, and I'm telling you, this is why I do it, because I could talk about Airbnb until I'm blue in the face. So thank you so much one more time, host. I respect your time. I totally value you. I appreciate that you're here and that you're taking the time to do with us. And if you want to have some more information, ooh, look at that, it went fast. If you want to feel confident, these are a great tool. The Get Properly site, it's a great tool, even if you're home, just because set up everything beforehand so that when you travel, when you're away, when you might have an Airbnb, when you might have an, okay, I'm sorry, Don asking me a question. When you might have an emergency or anything like that, you want to feel confident, you want to feel comfortable. And this is all that you're doing beforehand, all right? So feel confident, feel calm when your guest is arriving, when your right guest is walking by you and is coming to your house. And for that, you could come in over and pick my brain. Yes, I am now talking about this. So to maximize your price, to talk about your photos and captions, I talk about this a lot. Whenever I review a listing, I create a report and I do a lot of marketing information for you. I talk about headlines and names and what's best for your space. We talk about house rules and much more. One of the things that I also offer right now is a 10% offer off until December 20th, just for a little bit. It's and 1 hour with me, it's $85. That's 1 hour of you and I talking, but I do a lot of research beforehand. So when you and I are talking, it's just pure information and we're not wasting time. And in addition, you also get my guidebook template, which Alex and Tammy were talking about having a house template and how important it is because it gives you a lot of instructions and information to your guest. And it is easy. I have a prompt document that guides you, that includes a lot of questions, a lot of information for you to go and guide through what you should have in your guidebook. And then I provide you with a template. This is part of mine. I tend to personalize it a little bit but this is totally usable. It's on the internet. You print it out, you save it, you can email it to your guests. And it's something that you'll be using again and again and again. And you get this during my consultation. But if you only want the guidebook, it's only $20. Look, that's it. It's just a couple of very expensive coffees or something like that. So less than anything is $20. Just contact me through Evelyn at evelynbadia.com and I'll give you information because I request whether you like PowerPoint, Keynote, or Google Docs, and just try to personalize it for you as much as possible. It is only staying for $20 for this year. Next year is going up. I'm doubling the price. So for you guys that are staying with me, please, and if you have any questions, we really thank you for spending your time. Christy, yes, you can include your own photos on your guidebook. It is very customized. You customize it. And what I do is I use your headline, one of your photos for the headline of the guidebook, so you can see it right here. Oops, you see I went too far. Let me show you. You see that top headline? That's actually my house. That's a photo of the front of my home. And you could do that on it. And so you could totally use your photos on it. Okay? And the front of my guidebook has the photo of my listing. So this is something that you could do. It's totally easy to use. A lot of people love it, and everybody that has downloaded it and used it, they really appreciate it. And believe me, this is something that all of my guests comment on. That my guests just love the idea of having something that is beyond a digital product. They want to sometimes watch TV and just look at it. Okay? Again, thank you, Alex and Tammy. We are going to let you guys go. We're being on this for 90 minutes. Yes. Well, Christy, just contact me at evelynbadia.com and I will give you all the instructions of what to do. So just give me a little shout out. All right. It's really simple. We like simple things like Alex's and Tammy's app. All right. Again, thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of the week. Alex and Tammy, thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Thanks, everyone, for attending, and thanks very much. Have a great weekend.
Okay, bye.